Welcome to Greg Hansen's Video Notebook, brought to you by Hughes Federal Credit Union. I'm Star Sports Editor Ryan Finley, here with Greg Hansen. Greg, before the season started, I think all Arizona Wildcats fans would admit, they probably had a pretty good quarterback and didn't know what else they had. After week two, even the quarterback is not exactly what we thought he was. What do you make of Brandon Dawkins?
Well, I go back a little bit.
Okay.
Arizona in the mid-'80s had a quarterback named Alfred Jenkins from L.A. who was built like Brandon Dawkins. Mm-hmm. USC and UCLA wanted him to be a linebacker, so he came here to be a quarterback. And those teams were built around defense, and they didn't need him to pass.
Right.
Then Ortiz Jenkins came, same thing. Mm-hmm. Couldn't pass.
Right.
Teams are built around defense, and they were good.
Right.
And now Brandon Dawkins, the team is not built around defense.
No. Teams built to win games 42-38.
Yeah.
And when you're not completing passes, and Brandon Dawkins is not completing passes, or passes of consequence, that's where we got problems.
Boy, he really struggled against an average team. I think Houston was an average team.
Right. They played like it, yeah.
If Houston was in the Pac-12, I think they'd finish 5th in both divisions.
Okay.
And Arizona struggled against that team. Mm-hmm. Not good news.
Is it mechanical? Is it between the ears? Is it injuries? What do you think it is?
Well, what would you say about a baseball pitcher who doesn't throw strikes? I mean, is it mechanical?
Right. A baseball pitcher who throws 100 but doesn't throw strikes.
That's a good one.
Right.
I mean, even the pitcher probably couldn't tell you.
Right.
I don't think Dawkins could tell you why suddenly he doesn't throw strikes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's funny, too, because you'd have to think that in order to win the starting job in training camp, in order to get to the point where you're sort of the unquestioned quarterback of this team heading into week one, he must have done some pretty good stuff between February when they had spring ball and now. So has something changed? Do you suppose he's a guy who practices better than he plays?
That's a possibility. My theory is he played so good against such a bad Arizona State defense in last year that everybody said, "Oh, this is our guy."
Right.
I mean, remember how good he was?
Right.
But he didn't complete a pass in the second half.
There's an easy way to rectify this, and you're going to laugh at me. Why not just run a lot? He's a dynamic runner. I mean, we can all agree right now that he is probably as aggressive and dynamic a sheer runner as any quarterback they've ever had. Gerard Randall was pretty awesome. But, I mean, this guy when he's barreling down on you, he's a load. Why wouldn't you just throw the ball 12 times a game instead of 30 times a game?
That's a really good point. Maybe they'll start doing that. Maybe they'll just say, we're going to run him until he gets hurt. Right. Because he's their weapon. Right. And are they afraid that he's going to get hurt? I don't know.
He keeps getting hurt, whether they're afraid of it or not. I mean, before he overthrew Tony Ellison in Saturday's game, he took a hit that I think all of us, in retrospect, look back on and went, oh, my God.
Yeah.
And then Khalil Tate came in after Dawkins, I think, had one more ineffective drive. I think one of the byproducts of playing in Rich Rodriguez's offense as a quarterback is that you're going to get hurt unless you learn how to slide.
Wow, that's a good one. He's not a slider.
Nope.
He's a big, tough hombre. And number two, he doesn't have a lot of recruiting resources.
Right.
Arizona's group of receivers it might be the least skilled and deep that they've had since Dick Tomey ran the option.
Right. We were talking about this on our podcast earlier today. They need a David. Forever Arizona had a David, right? David Richards, David Roberts, David Douglas.
I know.
Just one of those guys who would go sit down in his zone, catch a ball, and lay down.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they have that, not possession guy, but kind of veteran, skilled guy.
Go-to guy.
A go-to guy. Shun Brown, I think, is good, but I think Shun Brown's a slot receiver on most teams.
And it's strange because receivers are probably the easiest position to get. They are everywhere. You can get receivers.
Right.
Everybody has good receivers.
Right. NAU had a great receiver. It's interesting to me. And you're right. You make a good point. Brandon Dawkins doesn't have anybody really helping him out once he gets rid of the ball. That said, he had a chance to win that game 6 times, 7 times on Saturday. I mean, even in their final drive last Saturday, he goes incomplete pass.
He threw a 6-yarder.
Right, or 6-yarder, right. Negative 3-yard completion to J.J. Taylor. Incomplete pass, run for his life on 4th and 13. That's not something a veteran quarterback should do.
No, and it wasn't Washington you're playing against.
Right.
It was just so disappointing that they could be so flat the second week of the season in the game. They had to win.
They had to win. here's the larger question. 90% of all journalism football talk is coaching and quarterbacks. Yeah. Is it possible?
95%.
95. Is he just a symptom of a larger issue?
Sure he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arizona doesn't have enough good players.
Right.
That's, to me, the larger issue.
Right. And the larger issue is if they had better players, maybe he'd be completing more passes. And maybe they wouldn't be leaning on him to save them. I still don't understand, I guess, that how in the time Rich Rodriguez has been here, there has not been that one Denard Robinson kind of guy. And it seems like once they do have guys who flash kind of hot, they get hurt.
Rich Rod built his whole career out of 2 quarterbacks at West Virginia.
Pat White, yeah. Well,
I mean, Pat White. Just say one then.
Pat White. And at Michigan, Denard Robinson was incredible.
And he hasn't had that guy here. He hasn't. I mean, you got to have that guy there in the Pac-12. If you don't have that guy, you're going to be where Arizona is.
Right, right. I still think it'd be interesting if you just ran some option stuff. Or run more than you have been and see if maybe that frees up the pass. You know, the way football was played for 100 years until 5 years ago.
Yeah, but now suddenly Nick Wilson's hurt and your running game's limited. And I mean, this isn't good.
I know. That'll do it for this episode of Greg Hansen's Video Notebook. A very uplifting, encouraging episode of Greg Hansen's Video Notebook. For Greg Hansen, Jeff Hammerschmidt played quarterback here at some
He started against Cal one day.
Why?
Because everybody else got hurt and he ran the option. And that's how desperate they were. But they won in those years.
Right.
Because they played defense.
Right. I'm Ryan Finley. We'll see you next time.